panel that's from all the way in Central Europe. So they've got a really fascinating story. It's been great to learn how this team came together and started working with each other. Now, if this is your first webinar, there's a few things you want to be present for it. So make sure to mute your phone. It's the way you get the most out of this. I know you got tabs open in the background, so try to close all of them. I know you have them, so close those tabs because you want to be ready. They put a lot of effort in this presentation. It's going to be very exciting. So I will let Zach introduce Team Wasserretention, and I guess we'll get started with this webinar.
Awesome. Thank you, Raleigh. It's really exciting to have you guys all on here today. I think it's really one of the things that we're most proud about in the course is that we can then highlight all of our students that go on to do amazing projects in their own backyards, in their own community, and in this case, actually teaming up to form this really awesome business and organization to spread this work throughout Central Europe. So I'm going to drop in the chats their links and resources. They're kind of just announcing this project to the world. So you can get in right from the start, check out their website, check out their social media feeds. But it's been really awesome to see each one of you grow and develop and learn and really start to do this work in a really meaningful way. So really excited to have you guys on here today.
Well, thank you, Zach. Thank you, Raleigh. Thank you, Water Stories, for providing the content that I think is extremely valuable to all of us. And I guess I'm also speaking for the audience here. And yeah, thanks for also providing a platform for people like us to meet up and yeah, get together and discuss topics on water retention. I think we'll dive right into a presentation. I guess, Raleigh, could you share?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I will share the screen and we'll get going.
Oh, unless you two wanted to say something.
Oh, no. I think the only thing I want to add is it was so cool meeting with you guys and hearing your story about how your journey, how going from students who were individual students to working together, because often a lot of the students, they're usually partners who already have some land or they're individuals. But this is the first story where it's like people independently came together and formed a business and a group together. So this is the very first webinar where it's like a team collected together from the ether. So for us, it's extra inspiring. So people don't need to just work alone. They can work together. So it's really awesome to hear your guys' story and to show people that you don't have to just work alone. You can form a team, a group together, whether you're an activist, a professional, or trying to do this on your land. So I guess without further ado, I'll let you kick it off. Who's speaking first? Is it Leandra or
Well, if I
Hannah
can
or
just chime in one more piece there too, I think
Yeah,
you hit
absolutely.
something really so important is that it's so hard to do this work on your own on an island. I think this is one of the ideas from the start of Water Stories. How do we connect people? But so few people successfully start their own business. But if you can do it with others and you can have this shared collective that's greater than the sum of its parts, I think that's one thing that you guys have done really well and something that as we look at what has worked and what hasn't with Water Stories, it's something we want to facilitate more of because seeing what you guys are doing gives us so much hope.
Awesome. Well, with
Yeah.
that, I'll cut my video feed and I'll just be controlling the presentation here.
Thanks a lot for introducing this, and I think this is exactly where we're coming from. We've gained so much from being on Water Stories and meeting up there. So currently we're Team Wasserretention. We're a network of people with different professional background and expertise. And we all met during the Water Story course online. So we started exchanging in the forum online and started talking about the contexts that we live in, so Germany and Austria. Yeah, from online exchanges, we went into slowly working on projects together, and I think it's 1.5 years later now, we're yeah, coming out as a network. And we're here to present to you our story. And before we go any further, I'd like to have my team members quickly say hi. Hannah, do you want to start?
Yes, sure. Yeah, I'm Hannah, calling in from Wiesbaden in Germany today, located close to the River Rhine. Maybe you know where this river is located. Okay, Julian, do you want to go on?
Yeah, my name is Julian. I'm located in Traben-Tabach at the Mosel River. It's also in the southwestern of Germany. And Gerhard?
Hi, I'm calling in from southeastern tip of Austria, like bordering Hungary and Slovenia. Yeah, and I'm looking forward for this evening. Great to have you here.
Yay. And my name is Leandra. I'm usually in Cologne, Germany, but right now I'm in the Netherlands. Lots of water everywhere. And on what we'll do today, we spend a lot of time thinking, how can we, make the most out of this? And what we came up with is that we want to start with a bit of context, just sharing, what is Central Europe in terms of water restoration potential? What are our legal structures? Not too much on that, and a bit of climate. And then we'll share more about who we are within this context and what we came up with as an offering, but also how we work together as a team. So we also really want to put a bit of emphasis on, what Zach and Riley mentioned in the beginning of how nice it is to actually have a team to support you and how we do that and what it means for us to be a team. And then we'll share some projects, so you see what we've actually been up to on the ground. And and I hope by the end of it, you know what you should be contacting us for and who you would be contacting. And in case we didn't answer these questions, we're happy to answer your questions at the end of it. So I think that's it, and I'll give it to Hannah to give it a start. And
Yes,
we'll move
so next slide, please. We thought, as Leandra just said, we start with giving a rough context of where we are. Although, as you heard, we are in different spots in the German-speaking countries, Austria and Germany. But we wanted to give you a rough context of, let's say Central Europe, where we are located. To begin with, most of you probably think of Central Europe as rather green and lush, like you see on this picture. And in this part of the world with its temperate climates, it can indeed be really green. This is also how we got to know the landscapes we grew up in. However, this is changing in the last recent years. Next slide, please. So, these two satellite images from the European Union's Earth observation program Copernicus depict the contrast between the rather relatively wet summer of 2021 in Europe and the very dry summer of 2022. And as you can see, what these pictures depict is that, or reveal, is a widespread browning of large parts of Europe due to this drought, and this is not only affecting the Mediterranean, but also usually rather wet regions like the UK, Germany, the north of France. And this dry summer of 2022 is a part of a trend that accelerated in the recent years and became most visible since 2018, indicating a shift towards more dry spells and more dry weather conditions in Europe. So what this means is that while we do have different temperate climatic zones in Central Europe, from climates that are affected by the Atlantic Ocean to really rather continental climates, what they basically all have in common that the expectation of fully humid years, we cannot rely on this expectation anymore, that we have fully humid years. The climate is changing, as we all know. Next slide, please. We all know the consequences of drought. Extremely low water levels, not only in small creeks, but also in major rivers. Like here on the left-hand side, you can see the River Rhine in a very dry summer. decreasing groundwater levels, of course, and dried out soils and vegetation stress. These are all views that we unfortunately had to get used to in the past few summers. Next slide, please. Yeah, and due to the increased drought intensity, also wildfires are appearing more often and in larger areas. So until recently, I think wildfires were not perceived as a major threat here. At least I think most people, thought or used to feel like, oh, forest fires, that's mainly what's happening in Portugal and Spain, but not really here. But well, now we have quite high forest fire risks almost every summer, also here in our surroundings. Next slide, please. Well, and as we all know, the other side of drought and fire risk is also the side of extreme rainfall events and floods. Here you can see 2 recent big flood events that took place in Germany, causing immense damage and also the loss of human life. And such disastrous floods take place both in hilly landscape, as you can see on the picture on the left-hand side, but also in the flatlands of northern Germany. Next slide. So what this means is that the cycle of drought and flood becomes visible in its own way in basically every landscape, every topography, every climatic zone in Central Europe and Europe in general, be it the hilly, low mountain regions where Leandra, Julian and me live, or the pre-alpine landscapes where Gerhard lives, or also very flat areas and landscapes. Next slide. Yeah, and since these consequences of climate change and distorted water cycles become so visible all over Europe, political frameworks have started to address these problems as well. For example, on the European Union level, there is the nature restoration law in preparation. So it's still in preparation. We can only hope that much of the original draft survives the democratic process it's still in, and that the EU really gets legally binding targets to restore nature and repair damaged ecosystems at scale. That would be a large win. Next slide. But also at national level, there are supportive frameworks on their way in several EU countries or already have been adopted. For example, in Germany, we had 2 programs adopted just last year that also take into account water cycle restoration, at least in parts. Firstly, there's the National Water Strategy, and the second one is the Action Program on Natural Climate Protection, which focuses on nature-based solutions and ecosystem restoration. And both programs are also connected to funding schemes. Next slide. So while we have an increasing amount of supportive policy frameworks, the implementation of decentral water retention measures is often complex. One reason for this can also be that both in Germany and Austria, we have an enormous amount of set of rules and technical standards. These are also slowly moving into the direction of nature-based solutions, but and they are of course also where they're coming from the technical side, and with the aim to prevent pollution, for example. These aims are really good, and we are of course in this way happy to have these regulations and sets of rules. But they are also can be difficult to deal with because they're not per se very accessible. For example, here, that's why I put this on this, why we put this on this slide, is that you can see the price for accessing just one set of rules. Next slide, please. And why I told you this, just to give you an example. For example, in my municipality, in my hometown, when you want to install even a small and relatively easy roof water infiltration basin, you have to meet at least 3 different norms or sets of rules. And for us, this means, because we're all not engineers, for example, this means that cooperation with engineers becomes really important for us also for liability reasons. And this makes, of course, very much sense, especially for bigger projects and maybe more risky projects, let's say. But at the same time, this can, of course, also make small DIY low-risk projects more complex and expensive for homeowners who want to install them, and also more complex for us to go into implementation. Next slide, please. Yeah, and as the last aspect of our context, we also wanted to go into this topic we're dealing with, the disconnection between people and ecosystems. As in many parts of the world, this disconnection is growing. Most Europeans live in urban areas, and large parts of our landscapes are densely populated. So this means that low impacted ecosystems are often far away from where people live. And that's why through our work, we also want to help bring people back into connection with the ecosystems they live in. Yeah, and with that, and the next slide, I give the word back to Leandra.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. I think people probably now have a better understanding of what we're dealing with around here. And we'll get back to a couple of these points later on. But I don't quite know if they know exactly where we are and who we are. So we'll show you next, maybe Julian.
Yeah, thank you, Leandra. I would like the next slide, please. To give you a quick orientation, this is Europe without boundaries or country names, because these things are also unknown to water. Water is always moving freely in the atmosphere and the rivers and the ground. The cluster of the red dots are the locations of Hannah, Leandra, and me, Julian. Gerhard is our deep Eastern Austrian guy. Next slide, please. And now we have some blue dots, and they stand for the position of people we work with. And it's easy to see. Some are in Germany and Austria, and some are in non-German speaking countries like Italy, France, and Portugal. Now that we know where we are, let's talk about who we are. Leandra will start.
Can you put the next slide, please? Yeah, so quickly on who are we? My name is Leandra Roller. I have a study background of integrated water resources management. I've worked in wastewater treatment, lots of development cooperation, a bit of research. Lately, I've been in fund management with a bit of finance, and currently I'm a freelance consultant for water resources management, working on climate strategy development, looking into how can we make climate strategies for water enterprises especially. You can check me out on my webpage. And then I thought, let's talk about our favorite water topics. That was a bit difficult for me to decide because I like them all. But if I'll have to choose, I'll go for lakes, wetlands, and edible swamps, wastewater treatment, as well as catchment resilience. I think probably covering all topics somehow. Next slide.
Yeah, hi, this is me. My name is Gerhard Üblinger. My daily tasks are around building constructed wetlands, planning agroforestry, developing water retention models, and consulting in crowdfinance, which is a bit of a side issue. And actually, I love to blend these jobs with my actual education, which is agriculture and social work. So, yeah, this is where the point of connection comes in. My experience in international cooperation, carpentry, and also my curiosity for indigenous land management practices drive me. I don't know, for some reason I want to go international. That's what I really feel. In our team, my focus is to promote the good relations between us as a group. And on a practical level, I bring experience with major earthworks and cost estimation. My favorite water topics are catchment management, river and wetland restoration, and I love the idea of multi-purpose ponds. and also the issue of connecting people with land, water, and each other. Yeah, again, the next one is Julian. Next slide, please.
Yeah, thank you, Gerhard. Yeah, that's Julian. I'm a carpenter and communication designer, and I'm the founder of Wasserretention.de, which is the German-speaking info website about water retention in general. My focus is concept development visionary, and that means developing ideas you can use for something meaningful. My core competence, I would say, is bringing together separate fields, which means that you think it is not combinable. I try to combine. I'm a famous DIY lover here, and I and upcycle everything that you can imagine. My favorite water topics are water retention in house and garden. And I call myself a student for life. Hannah? Next slide.
Yeah, and last but not least, my name is Hannah Fröb. I'm a geographer, and in my master's, which was urban environmental management, I specialized in nature-based solutions in an urban and peri-urban context. So yeah, that's why I'm also really interested in sensitive, water-sensitive urban design and but also decentral water retention features at a landscape scale. And next to that, yeah, my other favorite topics connected to the water cycle, let's say, are multifunctional land use, especially agroforestry systems, is something that I'm really interested in for many years already. And since recently, regarding my main job, I have a full-time job as a climate adaptation manager at a close-by municipality. So that means I have the task to compile and write a municipal climate adaptation strategy, and then later on to hopefully also coordinate the implementation of specific measures. And I really feel that my so far acquired knowledge on decentral water retention and water cycle restoration I deepened here through water stories, and now also within Team Wasserretention really helps me in my current role as a climate adaptation manager. So yeah, this way I hope to bring effective change about in my role rather as a water advocate, because my current full-time job is rather a strategic policy-focused role on a local level. And yeah, since my full-time job is taking up much of my capacities, I will not be as active in Team Wasserretention projects as a freelancer, not as much as the other three. But I definitely plan to stay in the team, to support where I can, to continue learning together, and also to implement some smaller projects in my direct surroundings. Okay, next slide, please.
Okay, I think now you sort of know who we are individually, and you probably also wonder, okay, how do we work as a team? So I think next we'll share a bit about why we teamed up, how we teamed up, and how we work as a team. Next slide, Julian.
Yes, why team? This is the big headline of the next few slides. Why team? A little bit provocative. And who are we as Team Wasserretention? The initial spark was that we met at the first round of the core course by Water Stories 2 years ago. And there we got super inspired and said, let's work together and learn from each other and to support each other. You can say different characters and expertise find their way of cooperation. We meet all the classical questions of teamwork and give them space. And this is what we cannot stress as much as possible, to give them really the space to work on them, to learn from the team, for us personally, and also for our clients. Next slide, please. A little bit of our team workflow. We exchange weekly and work together on water retention using different skills. This is always online meetings. We had 2 in-person meetings so far, just to give you an idea. Yeah, we are a network of individuals with different backgrounds and expertise, and we support from a distance. And sometimes this feels pretty strange, but it feels also good. And we offer especially consultation and workshops. Next slide, please. And here we give you some deep stuff of team building, the staff competence and mindset. So what is it? In our team, we see that everyone has a personal star of competence and mindset, which always looks different. The larger a spike on your star, the higher your competence in that area of your mindset is bolder there. That's why the star has spikes of different lengths. When you have a shorter spike, your competence is low. This often holds us back from trying larger tasks because we don't feel prepared. We do not feel the confidence in that area, and we decide, I can't do it. When I look at my competence star, I see that I'm quite creative. So I have a long spike on creativity. However, I'm not as good in organizing, so the spike of organization is very short. Look at my mindset. Trained in fast action, let's do it, and pretty fast. But I'm pretty weak in delegating things to others. What makes this interesting in a team? Next slide, please. This goes out for all team members. And when we put our stars together, something wonderful happens. Next click, please. A nearly perfect star is forming, one that can face challenges and tasks you never could imagine. That's one empowering aspect of teamwork, bringing together everyone's competencies. Weaknesses are so compensated. In a team, we help and support each other. Next slide, please. What makes our team strong is combining our strengths. What makes our team resilient is sharing our weaknesses and learning to work with them. This is the space we give each other. Next slide, please. These are 3 qualities that are important to us in our daily collaboration. It is mutual listening, giving each other the space, and respecting each other's feelings creates emotional stability, which is the first on the left. In the middle is, it's super activating to support each other and to get into action as a team. And the fun part is sharing is caring. Doing things together brings so much more fun. Okay, next slide, please. And here's our offering, and this goes back to Leandra, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. So yeah, while we've been meeting and sharing and taking action together over the last 1.5 years, we've of course also been thinking, so what is it that we can offer together? And lots of these things we touch on in our personal different jobs. But, and that's a bit like the self-competencies, if we bring them together, all the things that we can do, we actually come up with a very nice set of things that we can offer. So I want to share a bit about what exactly it is that we offer as a team. Next slide. And that pretty much groups itself into 4 categories of things. So first we do presentations and workshops. These can be on the topic of water retention. We're covering lots of, water stories, topics of how does the water cycle relate to the climate change problems that we see at hand. Then we go into, droughts and floods, how to prepare for these, just as input presentations that we give, but we also give input presentations on some of the topics that we work on more on a personal level. So agroforestry or water and agriculture, a bit of sponge city. So depending really on what the request is that comes to us, we'll see if we can feel good in presenting or organizing a workshop on that. Then we also do consultations for properties. So here we're talking more of conceptual things, and we do these preferably on site, but sometimes we also talk with people online to just give them ideas of what they could be doing. And here again, we're generally usually doing site analysis for water retention potential, but then also if people have more specific questions on, let's say, agroforestry or water and agriculture or wastewater treatment, since Gerhard and I have a bit of background there, we also would provide input on that. And then we also do more specific planning and construction site support. So this links back to what Hannah was talking about earlier, all the legislative frameworks that we find ourselves having to deal with. So depending on what it is that a client wants, we either guide construction site processes or we get engineering teams involved. And lastly, and that links a bit back to the role of teaming up, we also do process support. With that, we target companies, organizations, but mainly also communities that want to go through a process of, for example, identifying what it is that they want as an adaptation strategy. And here we're looking lots into team building and solution finding together as a group. You can find out more on any of these on our website. Please have a look at our website. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I think most recently YouTube. Please feel welcome to follow us on any of these. And you'll see updates and probably projects there. Just as a probably interesting for you, we put these offerings on our website sometime last year, probably in the middle of last year, and we didn't do much advertising around it, just because we were still forming up and seeing how to align and to do workflows together. But since the topic has such a big resonance already at the moment, like water and climate is just going through the roof, people are just reaching out to us anyway. So we haven't advertised anywhere, and people come to us, and that's also where the blue dots earlier on the map from Julian came from. And it's interesting to see what people are interested in, and it's mainly so far, well, 3 out of the 4, which is lots of people from property saying they want to work on water retention on their property, which then either turns into just a consultation or a real project. But people have also reached out for trainings and workshops, and we're currently working on a weekend workshop on water retention that we're hoping to turn into a little series on water retention on farms, to actually take people by the hand and explain the concepts of water retention and a bit of reading the land. I hope that was clear. Let us know if you have questions or direct requests, and I'll go to the next slide. And I guess this is a part that you've all been waiting for secretly, projects. We want to share a bit of things that we've been working on. And I think I'll start right away with the next one. Next slide, thank you. Which was rainwater infiltration DIY instruction. So here I work with property owners to work on an infiltration pond, or an infiltration pond is a mix of a pond with a sealed, in this case we use the plastic mold in the middle of an infiltration basin, where in case of heavy rain events, the infiltration basin would fill up and leave time for the water to infiltrate. This was a DIY, me instructing, because it was in one county of Germany that has an easy regulation on this and actually allows people to infiltrate water on their land. So in the picture you can see this infiltration pond with a little pond in the middle. Why we opted for a plastic mold here was because the property was too small to really do major earthworks, and also the people didn't want to have major earthworks being done. So this was the solution we came up with. Next slide. Just to give you an idea, does the water come from? It comes from the roof. We use a rainwater separator there, and then through a pipe, lead the water into the garden. Next slide. Where it comes out in a... Okay. You guys still there? Something changed for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
No,
we got
can
you.
still see and hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it comes out. So basically the flex pipe from earlier comes out at the right here into a little spring basin that we built, and then from there goes through the garden and a dry creek until it ends up at the infiltration pond that you saw on the first picture. Next slide. And what has been extremely nice about this project is also the excitement of the owners on the amphibia that started moving into this pond very fast. Like within weeks after project completion, there was lots of frogs in there, and different to what was expected, that people would be like, oh no, with frogs they make noise. Actually, everybody is very happy about seeing some life happening. And then also we have a viper that is passing by every now and then and feeds on some of the frogs. So it's incredible to see how from this tiny little pond an actual ecosystem started developing very fast, and how soon life moved in there. Next slide. Hannah.
Yeah, another project we are working on is an infiltration landscape that will hopefully be implemented for the roof water of a local nature NGO here in my hometown in Wiesbaden. This NGO house is kind of a clubhouse and also a group accommodation, but for being located in an urban context, it has quite some land around it and thus space for infiltration, which is quite nice. So together as Team Wasserretention, during one of our live meetings, we walked the land and brainstormed on how the infiltration of the roof water could best be done, in our opinion. And we made a rough proposal. And based on our proposal, or on our concept that we developed, we also had a local landscaping firm make an offering for the implementation of this concept we proposed, and we then compared their offering, which was quite pricey, to what we had estimated what we would need in terms of finance or in terms of price to implement it. And we did that to better understand the local conditions. Besides that, it turned out that it needs quite some work to meet the regulatory requirements of the municipal water authority here. As just Leandra told about the last project, about her project, also here definitely people are allowed to infiltrate water, but we have a stricter, in this county or in our municipality, we have stricter regulations on what we have to hand in before we can legally build any form of infiltration, even if it's a very, very small one. And I think that's also connected to the fact that here in our region we have a lot of less soils that do not infiltrate very quickly. So I talked to one woman from the municipality who said that the municipality is basically afraid that, or knows that in large parts of the city the soils do not infiltrate very well, so they are really do not want to have the risk that people don't plan it well and stuff like that. So we have more regulations. What that means for us is that before we can go into implementation, we are consulting a local landscape planner to discuss our ideas and to find ways for meeting all these regulatory requirements and criteria as efficiently as possible, hopefully. while doing this, or while starting this process, we are also researching on ecological subsidies together with the NGO or other funding opportunities to enable them to finance the implementation of the infiltration landscape. Yeah, and after all, we think and we hope that we can, in the end, have the best cost-benefit ratio for the local client NGO, and that we can do a good job on implementing legally. Maybe also in the form of an in-person workshop for the members of the NGO or other interested people from the surroundings. Next slide, please. Yeah, and as a side note, this is a project that came about through my community outreach evening I organized as part of the Water Stories core course. And I organized this evening in this NGO's house. And after the presentation, they came back to me and said that they now want an infiltration landscape, which was a really nice success feeling after this presentation. And why I'm telling you this is that also in this case, for this presentation, Team Wasserretention helped me a lot, because I was extremely nervous and insecure about this evening, and the others gave me quite some mental and also thematic input and support in preparation of the presentation. And in the end, this presentation turned out to be basically the basis for this project we can hopefully implement. Next slide. And that's Julian's.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, that's me. Again, I call it garden spa. That means where you see the dog in front of this, she's watching a 1,000-liter bathtub. And on the right hand, you see a little picture of my glam camp in my garden that I rent out to make my living, kind of. Yeah, and the nice thing about this is then that the more often you use this super small swimming pool, this 1,000-liter bathtub, the cleaner it gets. And without chemicals, without pump or anything. And how does it work? The clue is that the water flows in circles. If someone is using the bathtub, the water level rises several centimeters, and the overflowing water is directed into a used water treatment pond with plants. There are some hoses that are in the ground. Check valves ensure that the water actually flows in the circuit. When flowing through the constructed wetland, the slightly contaminated water coming from the bathtub is bacterially cleaned in the root system of the plants and flows into a mini pond, another one, the second one, where all suspended particles settle and the water is further clarified. Then it runs back into the bathtub. The cycle is closed. The evaporation of the water is compensated by the collected rainwater that comes from the roof of the tent. So this is a typical, a good example for my DIY things. For this, I spent $200. I asked no one for permission, but I spent 200 hours in this. So the rainwater is used and recycled several times instead of disappearing unused in the sewage system of the town. 3 benefits: to cool down, relax the guests in the bathtub. Second, to enrich the groundwater. The overflow goes into the groundwater. And thirdly, to evaporate for the benefit of the microclimate, the animals and the plants of the constructed wetlands. The experiences is anyone said who watched me building this can't work. I cannot do this. But actually, it works really pretty well. And my guests even pay me money. Sitting in the bathtub, I have no maintenance at all. The guests love it, the dog love it, everything is happy. Summarized, you can say a biotope for animals and plants in which people can relax and feel good. Next slide, please. Yeah, here you have a little how it works. In the left corner, how this goes into these circles in the 2 ponds. and is cleaned and going back to the bathtub. And looking down, you see some construction materials, mainly reclaimed materials. Okay, next slide, please. That's Gerhard.
Yeah, so I can now continue with some footage of the Cambim community area. This is the place where I live. I live in a community that overtook a military base some years ago. And as you can see in the background, it's a very agricultural, rural context, but it's strongly contrasted by these military base buildings who give us plenty of roofs and concrete areas. So we have a lot of water that we can collect, store, and infiltrate. And ever since I live in this place, I'm doing this, working on that. And it's always something that is in a mixture of DIY plus quite big scale. So that's how I came into practical work. And this is actually also a place where we, as a team, do our experiments. Whenever we have something that we want to do, but we are not really sure, can we do this? Is it safe enough? We go down there and we try it. And it really makes fun. Also to have these meetings coming together where we can do that. Also, it's the place where we gave some of our first workshops, and we use it as a showroom for people interested in consultation. As you can see in the background, the place is bordered by forests, and these forests, unfortunately, they are really exposed to devastating effects of clear cutting, which is not in this picture now, but it's something that is really kind of painful for my heart whenever I pass by. So I just want to mention, please don't clear cut your forests. You destroy the soils and you get them compacted with heavy machinery. And also for the water topic, it's so important not to do that because the water runoff increases and the soil runs away. But I am lucky, I have another forest like right next to it, and this is the part where you can see it. And it's so heartwarming to see this miraculous resilience that old grown trees can have. So it's like, whenever it's dry, they are there, they have their humidity. It's cool and shady and humid in the forest. I love old grown forests. So now I'm done with my love to forests. Before we go deeper into the water issue, I would like to show you some pics also of our market gardening, which is supplying like 60 people with vegetables a year round. And it's also the place where we learn from our gardeners about soil regeneration, about compost and biochar use in regenerative agriculture. Next slide, please. Another feature is a winterproof constructed wetland, which is placed in a greenhouse, and it's turning our wastewater into irrigation water. And next to it, on the left-hand side, you can see a small biogas system, which is creating cooking gas and fertilizer. Not on the picture, right next to it, there will be a compost biomiler, which is creating heating energy on compost. And why am I showing this to you? It's just to make clear, we have, through this project, we have so many people around, researchers and companies that are experienced in building up all this stuff. So whenever you have a question concerning how can I create an ecological homestead, we have some reliable referrals that we can give to you. Next, please. And this now is a drawn picture of one of my ponds. Actually, it's the work that I had to do for the water course to finish it. So this is my first practical implementation of a big pond. And it's also the biggest water retention feature that we have in our area. Actually, it's built to serve several purposes. That's why we defined kind of two water levels where the pond is shifting in between. During rain events, the pond is, and its surrounding trench and wetland system, they are filled to the maximum. The trench and the wetland system are leading the water, they infiltrate it, and also they supply water to wildlife that is coming from the forest. The pond itself, though, does not infiltrate. This is because we wanted to keep a certain water level for swimming. And as you can see, now in winter, for ice skating, but also in summer, we need the water for the irrigation of the gardens. So we have a storage there. Next, please. Next slide, please. In this picture, you can see a small biotope where all the overflow of the pond goes into. In this biotope, we just built it last year. We are going to experiment from this year on with growing wetland foods. The excess water that cannot be stored in this biotope gets either infiltrated there, or it's soaked up by the trees that are around, or it continues flowing in the creek that you can see, which is flowing through our campsite. Next slide. And now we jump to another piece of land, which is owned by our community. And there you can see a keyline adjusted agroforestry system, which has been planned by a colleague of mine. And it's done for growing fruits, like we have from apple, pear, nuts, and also kaki and more tropical fruits also. And in between the rows of trees, you find the sheep grazing in the summer and even now. For me, agroforestry and keyline are a key mean and a good combination when it comes to flood retention, erosion reduction, and also to increase the groundwater and recharge in agricultural land. Because agricultural land is where most of the water falls down, and it's the place where it has to stay. Because it's the place where we need it when it's drought in summer. Done well, agroforestry for me shows that it serves the productivity of crops and livestock. It's giving shade to the livestock. It's having a variety of crops. And especially in the dry season, it's a viable source of income and nutrition and also home to biodiversity. As you heard before, it's a field we are really deepening into it because it just makes so much sense to have it. Next, please. Here you can see an old grown grove, and in the middle of it, there is a huge biotope which has been here for like 4 or 5 decades already. This one, we have to undertake a renovation this summer because there is an outflow. It's positioned so bad that and it's also done so bad that it's actually destroying the dam. Year after year, it's crumbling down more and more. So this is what we are up to for this summer. Next, please. And right next to it, this picture is made from the dam down to a creek that is passing by this biotope, this pond, this big pond. And now it's not so visible in this picture, but actually after every stormwater that we have, when we have hard rains, this creek is deepening more and more into the ground. This means that the water level in the whole biotope and ecosystem there, which is more of a wetland system, is getting lower and lower, and the wetland system is drying up. Next slide, please. So what did we do with it? We started playing around, literally. We took some kids of our neighborhood and we started building like dams, just tiny check dams. The children collecting wood trunks and whatever. We nailed them into the creek. And just after 1 year, you can see that that there's a lot of sedimentation taking place again. So the water level is rising and it's growing bit by bit. So my intention was to really continue on this, and so I had to go to the officials, because when you want to restore a creek in Austria, you have to undergo quite some permission activities. I called an official to come to our place. Hey, how can we do this without getting a lot of bureaucracy? And then we were walking the land, and this guy was walking it and also crawling into the creek quite well. He was really curious. Then he was looking at his children's dams, and he said, yeah, I think if you do it like this, we don't need any permission. So this is what we are going to do this summer again. we are trying to set up the first, not trying, we are setting up the first workshop with handmade creek restoration. So to get this done, and also we have like in this property, we have like, let's say 1 kilometer of creeks, and half of it needs this restoration activities. So we can not only use the children, we need to do the workshops, and we need you to come to do this work with us. So it's fun, it's like in childhood, and it's really serving this wetland. As you can see in the background of this picture, it's really serving this wetland to do its job, to finally be able to host a beaver again, which is my biggest picture for this wetland actually. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I was a bit too fast with the slide, but it's okay. For me, working in this place with Team Wasserretention and also with my community people, to me, it really proves that if you are a persistent land steward, you can do a lot of things for nature with not so much money. And if you start talking about it, you get so much support. And if you show the will to communicate, even with the officials, they really help you out. I'm really surprised again and again, whenever I contact somebody that I need a permission from, there's always a loophole that is waiting for me to just jump through. Yeah, and now we are going to the end of this presentation. So what was it all about? I think before we go into the Q&A, I want to share and express my gratitude for Water Stories again. Because it's you, Water Stories, that brought us together, and also you inspired us with this, let's say, special blend of professionalism, vision, and spirit. And the four of us, and I think it's with a lot of students that way, our love to nature and water is really deepening from day to day, and also the wish to heal both of them. So it's something that really drives us. And what we could see is that left as individuals, we wouldn't go so fast. So we are really happy that we found each other. And also that we are widening the narrow, how can I say this, the narrow perspective we had on what we have to do. Whenever we talk to with each other, we find a way. Oh, you could do it like this. We could do it like this. And it's so much fun to go into sharing and cooperation. This mutual support, it really helps us to have a holistic approach together. And it's so much inspiration. And the best inspiration actually it is when we are trying to help each other, we learn how to be helpful to a client. That's the point. There is no better training for learning how to be helpful to a client than helping each other in this small group, because we have all the questions that are around. And yeah, whenever we can manage it with a client as well, because then we know that we have the capacity to do it. So yes, for now, we are available for your ideas and needs. You saw it we have a website, we have social media, and we really ask you to like our social media accounts. We just put them online and we would like to have them into the world. And you can reach out anytime for us. And in this Q&A session, we really love to answer your questions about the projects that you saw now, but also on, yes, how could we form a group? How could we start a team? This is also where we love to talk to you about. Thanks for your attention.
Beautiful. Thank you guys. That was fantastic. So cool hearing your story and each and every one of your individual perspectives. That's so amazing. Like, I come from a upscale background. Like I come from a policy background. Like, oh, I'm building an eco village and, studying this. It's really great seeing how you guys came together as a team with all these different ingredients to kind of match your strengths and offset each other's weaknesses. That's a really great story.
And I really love this because it's just such a proof of concept of everything that we've been aiming for. When we started Water Stories, we didn't know where it would go. We just thought we'd give it our best effort, but we set it out where to do the course, you have to do these things. And I love that by doing those things, you guys have gotten other projects, Hannah giving the presentation, Gerhard doing the pond at your place, started to bring Leandra and the others together. And it's just so wonderful to see that, you know, the dreams and hopes that we had of other people finding allies, finding people to work with, doing real projects, just all work out. And I think one of the things I've been most surprised by is how easily you can navigate policy if you do it with high integrity and with scalable actions. I think, Gerhard, you were really speaking to that, where you bring the person out and they say, well, if you just do it like this, that's fine. You don't need permission. And in so many cases with these creek projects, when people do a little bit to show what they're going to do and how it works, but do it so small that no one's going to freak out, and then they bring the authorities out, the authorities can say, yeah, that's great. That's preventing erosion. That's catching sediment. You can do that. But if you had, you know, just started by asking them to do that, they'd probably tell you, no, you're crazy. You can't dig in a creek. You can't lay logs around in a creek. And so I love that every one of you guys has just started to act and do these things, which then leads to all the connections you need to do it with others, to have clients finding you, to keep doing projects. To really bravo to each and every one of you guys for, you know, really taking the step and doing the action. Sepp always says, do something and something happens. And I think you guys are a great example of that. Just start doing stuff. Find the people who want to have fun, who want to work together, and you'll be amazed at how quickly you can move ahead. So for everyone who's on the call, we're going to do questions both in the question and answer. If you want to pop them into that feature, and we're also going to call on some people to ask questions with your voice, if you want to use the raise hand feature. So we'll start out with some of these in the question and answer, but feel free to either pop them in there or raise your hand, which is in the bottom of Zoom here, if you want to ask your question with your voice.
I see the first one from Janine. It's been up there for a while. So who are you guys working with in the Netherlands and Portugal?
And I'd expand that to say, who are the people in general? What types of people are you working with?
I think I'll answer these. We said earlier, let's see how we do this Q&A answering, but I think in this case I'll do it because they were contacts that I had, which is in the Netherlands. It's an initiative that works on edible swamps called the Voedselmoeras. Very, very nice, because the Netherlands is also facing challenges with, on the one side, sea level rising, at the same time, also the past water management strategies with the dewatering everything are also causing challenges. So this Voedselmoeras is basically looking into how can we do, I think it's also called paludiculture, if in other terms, paludiculture. What can we actually plant in wetlands? So they call it edible swamps. And they do pilots of edible swamps. And I just went on I heard about that and I was like, wow, that sounds like the missing piece to wetland restoration. Is like, okay, can we also make this not just sound dreadful for farmers, because I think lots, when you say wetland restoration, they're like, oh God, you want to take away my farmland. So the question is, okay, can we also have wetlands that are also somewhere interesting and inspiring for people? So this has not turned into a project as such, but went into me going with them to have a look at a piece of land that they wanted to re-wet, and then actually also joining for a planting activity of planting some edible swamp plants, where they're testing with the university what happens if we slowly raise water levels in some of the polar areas, which are the dewatered areas. So yeah, that's Voedselmoeras. Very happy for me to have a network of people that work on edible swamp plants. Yet looking for a wetland to actually use this on, or actually, we wanted to bring some of these plants to the wetland at Gerhard's place. Still need to install an edible swamp there. That's on the Netherlands. And in Portugal, I went to visit a project and did a site analysis, a water retention water retention potential analysis for a project called Project Camp. They have a big YouTube channel in case you want to check them out. The work I did there did not go into anything at this moment, but we're also in touch, and I'm thinking about going back there at some point and seeing if we can implement some of these things. Love Project Camp.
Leandra.
Yeah.
I see a second question here. It's more of a soil biology question from Francis LaPlanta. So she's asking, or he, are you improving the soil biology to create a soil sponge that can better handle water infiltration? So basically repairing the soil so it can better hold and retain water. Is that kind of part of the work that you guys do?
I think I can start on this a bit. So I just spent 2 days on a humus creation conference in a neighboring town. And I have to say, we as a group, for now, no. But the knowledge is growing. And where I can surely say that we are working on this is all this, the sector of agroforestry. So the more we go into this, there, of course, soil biology and soil building is part of the deal. Yeah. And from the conference, I can tell you the possibilities to improve this stuff, they are imaginable. There are so many possibilities to work on, and there is so great stuff going on. Like how much carbon you can put into a soil by using compost and charcoal and stuff. It's really amazing. And for me, I saw in this conference again, even more like before, I saw a key in this is one of the keys for the climate, for the battle against climate change, really. So yes, I'm working on the topic of water, and for the soil, I would bring some other people actually, but I know whom to ask. Yes.
Thank you, Gerhard. All right. How about this one
Yeah.
from? Oh, go ahead, Hannah. You were gonna say
Yeah, sorry,
something?
I just wanted to add, I think it's also whether it's about Gerhard's humus conference or the edible swamp project Leandra is in touch with. I think that's also an important part of working in water cycle restoration, because you cannot be an expert for all of it, but it's all interconnected, as we know and as we increasingly see. So I think it's also important to get in touch with people who have their focus on a different aspect within this whole integrated field of ecosystem restoration, let's say, or however you want to call it, so that you know people who you can ask if you need more knowledge on a specific aspect. I think that's also in general a really important aspect of working in this field, or starting to work in this field.
And another benefit of working in a team is that Gerhard has the humus connection, I have the swamp connections. But as a team we have them all, and that's great.
I like that. The swamp connections. We all need a swamp connection.
You do. Surely do.
All right, so here's a question from Donald, kind of about how you guys relate to neighbors during the projects. So Donald's asking, are the neighbors of these projects excited to join into your vision of retention and infiltration?
Yeah. I don't know. Julian wants to say something?
Yeah, maybe that's super interesting, because this is one of the first questions I ask on any consultation if I come to. What about your neighbors? Yeah. So what do your neighbors think about it? How do they stand to you? Do they like you, or do they say, this is the eco guy who always tries to do something, and now we have lots of sticky little poison whatever insects here because he made another fouly pond there. Yeah, that is super interesting. And maybe if you ask the neighbor, you would be amazed if you speak to him in the right tongue, with the right voice and the right tonus. and the prepared mindset, then maybe a person you would never dreamt about it would say yes, not even to your project, but even as a collaborator. It could be. It could really be. So some general words to neighbors, but I would say, yeah, definitely first question.
Maybe I can add something to this. I remember building my pond and having several neighbors and friends driving miles to just come and see what is happening here. And some of them were quite, yeah, I don't know if this is gonna work, and now they are swimming in it. And others, and actually this is more the people that are living in the place I'm working and this pond is located, they were really afraid of mosquitoes. It was a mess. Like everybody, yeah, you will bring the mosquitoes to us, and actually last summer we had a mosquito plague you cannot imagine, because it rained so much and the forest soils, they were so wet. But you could sit next to the pond, because there you had all these tiny crickles that are eating the mosquitoes. So there it was a better place to be than actually in the forest or anywhere else. So I couldn't, let's say, I couldn't tell the people in advance, hey, the mosquitoes will not be a problem. They wouldn't believe it. So I had to go there and say, hey, Zach said, and he knows it. This is the thing. But for the next one, I can come and say, go there, sit down in summer, and you will know no mosquitoes. This is not the problem. So I think from project to project, we will have more and more neighbors and interested people coming in and looking. And that's also why we are trying to find these workshop formats to make them come. Yeah.
That's funny. That's a question we get on every single webinar. If I build a pond, will mosquitoes take over my property? And you just gave a very good answer to all of those questions. The
Yeah, and
ecosystem
really
responds.
good answers on both accounts. I think Julian, like you mentioned, speaking to people in the words and values that they understand, you can get this message across so easily to anybody if you do that part effectively. And I've seen all of you guys do that really well. And that's one of the things that we really try and instill through the course as well, as how to do that. And then just building on Gerhard's point, we also see when you actually do stuff, it garners attention and interest. And then if people see the results, it starts this flywheel where we'll do one project in an area, and then a few years later we do another project, and then all of their neighbors want to do stuff. And so it kind of grows out on this longer time horizon. But now that Gerhard has that pond to take someone to, it's going to be so much easier to do the next pond, because they can say, oh, I'm scared about mosquitoes. And you can say, well, come here, sit here, see what you think. And that can really give them the confidence to move forward with the project, where when it's just ideas and theories and nothing on the ground, it's really hard to move these forward. So I think that's where, again, just doing stuff, having projects to bring people to, that's the thing that gets the flywheel going. And so you got to just do that first, then do it better and do it better. And you guys are really doing an amazing job of that, of just getting out there, doing stuff, learning from it, learning from each other. And that's the only way we get anywhere with all of this type of work.
Okay, so here's a question about you guys' business structure. What is your business structure? Did you form a corporation, or are you all private contractors? I think he's saying, or her is saying, I think collaboration could be more prevalent if there was structure for sharing profits and expenses. Yeah, just mostly, how do you guys work together business-wise as individuals?
Yeah, interesting question. This is what we ask ourselves since 2 years. No, jokes beside. Some of them, the most of them, are actually working on their own businesses already. So if it comes to a contract, then one of us is the contractor. So, and the others are subcontractors. This is our form to avoid at the moment a kind of cooperation, because in Germany, if we would form another corporation, then the first letter we found in our letterboxes is from the finance system, who ask us who we are and how much do we earn and whatever. So to avoid all this stuff, we do it as individual contractors at the moment. So this is how far we are at the moment. If it comes to bigger project, of course, we have to talk about how we deal with that.
Yeah, also maybe to that, as we are in this strong regulatory framework, we anyway need to have like professional contractors. So if I go out with a digger and dig around in some slopey area, I mean, I just don't have the permissions to do it. I would need like 2 or 3 certificates more. So I will anyway get, like I had with the pond, the best excavator driver that you can find far away and bring it in. He's anyway faster than I can ever be. So I rather focus on what is to do and how should it look like in the end, and bring in the people that do it, than trying to cover all by myself. And this is also why we don't need like a common structure now. But I think it will come the more we work together. The point is, since we work together, we also have more work on the individual level. So we also get this individual people approaching us for, hey, can you help me? And sometimes we don't know, do we do it as a team or do we do it as an individual? This actually is more the question that we have in the last months. Yeah.
Awesome. So here's a quick question about your workshops from Pietro, asking, how can we get in touch for the creek restoration workshops? Do you have any date in mind for it?
Not yet.
All right.
But how can you get in touch? You mail us on our team Wasserretention, and then we will inform you when we have the dates out. And of course, whenever I know when to do it, we will put it out on social media.
Awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, Pietro, we'll repost that link for you for Team Wasserretention. You just follow the link and just get on their email list, and they'll probably let you know when that's going on. Oh man, so many good questions here. Luckily, we don't have like hundreds, but we definitely have dozens, or maybe 14 are open. So, Zach, how about you pick the next few?
Awesome. And I'm going to combine a few. There's a lot
Okay,
of
cool.
interest around the edible swamps, edible wetlands. One question is, what types of foods are you harvesting from these, or could you be harvesting? And then another is there anyone in the US working on these kind of edible swamps?
I'll answer the first half on the US part. Unfortunately, I don't know, but maybe one of our audience or you, Zach, knows. No. In edible swamps, I actually pulled up. Can I still share my screen?
You should be able to.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, no, this is just a rough drawing. Please don't screenshot it. It's not mine. Yeah, basically, an edible swamp is set up from a water side of it on the right here. So you're looking into water plants, and these could be stuff like watercress or water mint. Watercress being nice and prickly, a bit spicy. Water mint makes beautiful tea. And then as we're moving a bit higher up, we find lots of berries, like blackberries, or okay, I'm lacking English words here, but different types of berries and different types of herbs that grow around there. And then we get more into bushy areas, I think hazelnut and other types of nuts, and then higher stems. And so an edible swamp would be set up with sort of several iterations of these. And yeah, they're still figuring out how to turn this into commercially viable concept, but I'll post the link to the initiative in a second.
Yeah, and maybe also what could be added if someone wants to go into this topic. I mean, this is now, they call it edible swamp, which is, I think, a really cool term. This organization coined, let's say, or I don't know who coined it initially, but if you want to dive deeper into the topic, you can also research on paludiculture. I know that there's quite a lot of research done at many universities on this topic, especially also in the Dutch context, for example, here in Europe, but also in different countries where we have the issue of actually wetlands that were also in northern Germany, for example, wetlands that were drained to use it for agriculture. Yeah, because we know what the disadvantages of this are, and yeah, to now see how we can use re-wetted wetlands still for yeah, for food production. And I, for example, know of one yeah, one farm, one company in the Netherlands, for example, that have turned like yeah, a drained grassland where cows, milk cows, I think, used to grass on, into a paludiculture field where they grow cranberries now. And yeah, I think there are, for sure, there are also companies or initiatives in the US and North America working on this. Maybe you find more if you search for paludiculture.
Awesome. And just to speak to the US side of that, I don't know anyone that's really taken that on yet. But in the Central America, there's a system called the Chinampas that's been around and used for a long time. So that's a way that you could learn more about this. You could really call those edible swamps as well, just under a different name. But as far as people in the US doing it, I see that there's huge need, but I don't see anyone actually doing it yet.
Yeah, I mean, in the Netherlands, it's also still really a niche, I would say. I mean, they have large parts of the country that are drained, and also in northern Germany, large parts of the areas are drained. And yeah, I mean, these initiatives are, of course, still like a small percentage, but someone has to start. So.
Damn right. We had one webinar with Natalie Topa. She actually used Chinampas as an emergency response and for an extreme flooding scenario. So that was a really cool seeing that context of a Chinampa system in like almost a desert climate where a flood happened and they very quickly had to use all this flood water, and it was by using Chinampas. And some really cool pictures from there. All right, so
I just want to one last comment on this.
Yes.
In case we have viewers from Germany that have a wetland that should be restored, there is currently funding opportunities for wetland restoration coming up. We'd be happy to help you on your wetland restoration. We're happy to turn it into an edible swamp. Reach out to us if you have a wetland. That was
I
it.
like that.
Yeah.
Well, here's a
Awesome. All right, do you have one picked out, Raleigh? Or I got
Well, that was just interesting. It seems like there's a few tech questions. Mostly, this is more kind of like follow up to that business one. So Donald's asking, do you need to buy a fair amount of insurance when doing these projects, especially in the Central European context? Like for when you guys are building the water infiltrations in the backyard, or Gerhard building the pond, or Julian with your, with your small natural swimming pool, like what kind of insurance or things you need to do for that?
Yeah, how does the insurance go?
So I will try to cover this. I think in our context, the most difficult, and especially in Austria, it's even worse than in Germany. The most tricky thing is to get the right certification or the right university degree to be allowed to open, like, let's say, an office that is planning this and that. So, and then when you have done this, you are only allowed to do this but still you need to have to know how you're doing this. And then what we experience is that most of these offices that are planning stuff, they go for the double safe solution. So like major earthworks and doing a dam like Zach does it, yes, you can have that, but for sure they will have like double, three times, triple safety measures that are not always needed. And this is because they try to avoid liability issues. Because in the end, liability ends very often. Yeah, the insurance company is trying to get rid of you whenever you have like a breaching dam. So nobody wants to go there. I think what this leads to is that some simple solutions are not done because nobody wants to do them. Or if they're done, you find the people that have this practical experience, they just dare to do it. And very often then a liability is an issue that you need to think a bit with the client together. So how will we do this? Because of course, when you have an architect that is planning it, okay, this architect is fine. He is liable in a way, but then you have the construction company coming in. They are liable again for what they are doing, and in the end, the insurance companies of all the players, they will start fighting each other and try to get rid of the liability issue. So I think the best thing that you can do when you think about this, and also about when you are getting established in this field, is really to try out things and to really see how to do it to have it 100% safe. You cannot avoid the liability issue whenever you have a problem, so try to avoid the problem. I think so far is the experience that I have, it's expensive. And when it's covered, yes, nice, then it's only expensive, but usually the insurance tries to get out of this. So I prefer doing double safe things, but I prefer still to do the simple double safe things and not to wait for these double and triple safe standards that are approved, and where, you know, even if it breaks, the Discord has said, yes, it's okay, but no. We just have to do it in a good way, and when you do it in a good way, you can do it. That's
Cool.
my thing, and I'm quite sure Hannah would say something different on this place. So also in our team, we have like this variety of, hey, we need to have it super proof and safe, and hey, I did it 3 times and I know how it works, and we can do that. So
Here's a good question.
maybe for a short sentence, I think the most important thing is to keep it clear on the client. So hey, whatever we are doing, it's your land. We don't want to destroy your land. So let us talk about how it is safe for you. And you will see the client is anyway going for the safe solution most of the time.
And
Nice.
super short from me to that. If you always align your projects to that what is allowed, or where the insurance custom says, yeah, that's nice and that's okay, you will never come out to something new. That's all.
And just to drive this point home, because I think it's really, really important, I think this is where scaling your actions and doing good work comes in play. If you do things that have issues, even if you have the best insurance, it's still going to be a nightmare for you. And we're in this environment where it's so expensive, it's so hard to do anything. To give you guys a taste, working for a project for the Department of Defense for the United States government, you'd think they could track something through the permitting process. They said to do a $500,000 project, it would take multiple millions of dollars of studies before we could even step foot on and move a cubic meter of earth. So it's creating this environment that's impossible to move forward in. And if you can do things that you know are under the threshold, like the kid example along the creek, I think is perfect. Bring someone there, they can see that you can do it well, then they're going to give you a little leeway and you can find your way through some of these systems. But it's also where just really doing good work and scaling your actions accordingly, not taking on too much, finding the right expertise, finding the team to help support you. Because even the best insurance policy, if you end up having to use it, it's going to be a nightmare in your life for probably multiple years.
Maybe even to add on this, what I always try is to get officials involved. To get to know them, to understand how are they working, and to ask the right one for his opinion. And whenever you have these officials there and saying, yeah, maybe this is a good idea, we could give it a try, you are more on the safe side that it's gonna work, even if there is some small trouble coming up. Even maybe a neighbor is asking, hey, what are you doing there? Is it legal? And so bring the people. And as I have to really put a lot of emphasis on here, of course, we don't do really illegal stuff. But as you said, we go into these creeks and we try this small scale stuff wherever we can, just to get the foot into the door and to be able to continue from there.
Yeah. And it's of course also always context dependent. Like when you're on your own land, or for example, in your own private garden, it's also again a bit different than when you are, for example, at this NGO place in my hometown I was talking about in the presentation. You have public events there on site, so there are many external people coming in as well. So then I don't know, it's also, yeah, I think you, at least in my opinion, you have to go a bit more for the safer option and definitely talk. I would totally agree to Gerhard. I would also always try to talk to the officials. I also already had a phone call to someone from the water authority at the municipality. And I think especially in context where you have like public coming on site and not only your private family and friends enjoying your garden and your, I don't know, your pond, for example, is again also a bit different than, yeah, a site where you have many people coming and kids groups and whatever.
Nice. All great answers. I really like this one from MB. Then why don't we dive into a live question? So MB is asking, has your team been influenced or been able to incorporate the work of Victor Schauberger? Ooh.
Great question. Thank you for that. May I start?
Really getting excited.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, I first came in contact with Victor Schauberger when I came to Tamara. It was actually 11 years ago, where I participated in my first landscape retention space design course. Yeah, this was 11 years ago. And there was a lot of talk of Victor Schauberger. And to me, it was completely new. I was super, I was keen about all this stuff. And I also read a book of him because it's also in German. That is quite good for us. And it inspired me, I have to say. And I haven't understand everything what he was talking about. Let's say a third or whatever. And he has so many theories and some machines and everything. I find these things super interesting. And he's talking a lot about vortexes. And vortexes are, in the physics, the at least experienced structure, like waves. There's turbulences. Victor Schauberger is always in this stuff. And the energy around these vortexes, because he has a theory that inside these vortexes, there's really, really super energy, which we also could use for power plants or whatever. So this was, and all the streams underground, this pretty interesting ideas from Victor Schauberger. Yeah, that was from my side. Leandra?
Yeah, I think the question was if we implement any of it. And I think there's a little, not directly. I think, I'm not sure if I'm also speaking for Hannah and Gerhard, but I also looked into his work, and it I thought it just went in like this. It was just like, that makes so much sense. I've been looking at water for so long and just reading on the different types of energies, and I'm like, I see this, of course. But I was very, very happy to have it pointed out. And at least for me, since that, I am looking slightly differently at water. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, how would I feel if I was water? How would I want to meander through here? So for me, it also comes in handy when actually moving rocks around and being like, okay, how would I feel if I was water now? Would I feel I'm in my flow? Yeah, I think to that extent, yeah.
Yeah, one more. There was always the talk of water wants to move. Never stop water from moving. And when you look at our modern infrastructure, when you look at these big and huge dams that are still be built in this world, there you have this stagnating water, and that gets muddy and not clear and bacterialized and whatever. And Victor Schauberger always says, please, if you put water into your infrastructure, make sure that it moves constantly, at least a little bit, at least. Never stagnate water. And in this coherence, this is all, please don't put water under unnatural technical pressure. And that is another thing that we always do in our house infrastructure. We put it under 4 bars, or what is PSI, I don't know the units in US, but we put it under 4 or 5 times the atmosphere pressure. And then it comes out of our tap. And then to this, Victor Schauberger, we have more or less destroyed the structure of water. You can see it under the microscopes. You can really see that it is different. Like if you freeze water or put it in your microwave, if you put these kinds of water under a microscope, you see that this water looks bored. Actually, like children in school. No, it's, yeah, I know. I mean, I have seen it. It's, you can look it up in the internet. You find these pictures. It is how you treat water.
You don't even have to go to the internet. You just step to the next big channelized river and you look at it, and it's very sad. So,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm done. Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't know, Hannah, Gerhard, do you want to say something to Victor Schauberger?
I have to say I haven't really read much more about it than what I learned in the Water Stories core course. That was actually my first time hearing about Victor Schauberger and his theories. And I think it's still on my list to get into it a bit more, because I think it's interesting, but I have to admit I don't really have a good overview yet, and to know what I think about it actually, or whether I actually understand what it's all about. I think I had a first glimpse of what he was working on, and not more.
Yes, I can add maybe, I think the first time that I heard of this guy, I was kind of 15 years old, and I never read a book of him till today. I don't know why. I mean, even he's Austrian, so maybe I should read him. But for me, water always was something that I love to sense. So I don't love too much to feel it, thinking about it. It's something that you step into and that you touch and that you play with, and that's my approach to water. And for some reason, I think Victor Schauberger says very much the same. When it moves, when it feels nice, it's good, and that's how I experience it. So I didn't feel the urge to to read him until now, but maybe I get asked it like every other week. Maybe I should read some books of him now.
Yeah, a lot of wild, fascinating wisdom to be gained from Victor Schauberger. I just dropped a free documentary link in the chat box for people who want to learn more about him. He's one of our 10 heroes of water that you can look up in our videos. And he's in the Sepp Holzer, or he was in the Sepp Holzer documentary before. Anywho, so we're gonna get to some live questions. If anyone has any live questions they would like to ask, just raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll just stick to the normal Q&A. But this is a great opportunity. If you want to ask a question with your voice, we will unmute you and let them rip. But no one's raised their hand yet. Oh, here we go. Question from Mary. How about Mary? I'm going to unmute you real quick. Hey, Mary, good to hear from you.
Hi, Mary.
And Mary, you're still on mute.
Yeah, you're
You also
still
need
on
to
mute
unmute.
there.
There you go. Oh,
Oh, my bad. Asked to unmute. Why don't you try that one more time there.
Okay, there.
There
Should be
we go.
muted. Okay, sorry about that. Really enjoyed this. The variety of applications you shared was really cool too. But I was wondering about the data that informs people about the before and after results, because water quality is a key driver for investment here, and it's smart to go with just the property owners. But if anyone could speak to that, how you're capturing data ahead of time and potentially using it, and if there are any standards or ways that we're comparing, so we have apples to apples, like hypoxia, or one aspect of data, sediment levels, or.
I don't know, Gerhard, you want to speak?
I think maybe I can say a small thing about this. At the moment, I'm in the process of planning more like a regional level water retention project where we work about the topics of agroforestry and also retention basins. And therefore, also for to get the funding in Austria, especially when it's about EU money, you always have to say how you will prove what you're doing. So there is some indicators that I like because they are very simple. And especially when it comes to water retention in large scale and in agriculture, it's like the humidity of soils. You can even measure them from a satellite image, so it's pretty easy, and you can do this before or after very easily. Also, ground temperature would be something that I love to use. I'm more in this bigger metrics. When it comes to like water quality, I actually have to admit I would maybe need to learn more and more about this. But like whatever I do up to now is very much on retaining and infiltrating water. So I'm not into this so much. With the river restoration, I think if we go bigger with that, for some reason, and we will have to have bringing in some university. I think it's very important. I have the brother of a neighbor of mine. He has studied and he already offered, hey, let's go there and see what indicators we could use. But also there we can do this, and the stream is flowing 200 meters further into agricultural land, and it's getting dirty again. So for me, I'm not so motivated at the moment. Also knowing that the federal government is doing a lot in this in Austria. So all this river restoration, there is a lot of indicators, there's a lot of tests, and there's a lot of universities involved. It doesn't need me personally to do this so much at the moment here in Austria.
I wanted to throw in one more indicator for water retention. I think is biodiversity. And I think that's something that you can very easily and very fast, like Gerhard was mentioning, there is no mosquitoes because the pond has a very lively ecosystem and you just need to go there and you can see it. And the same for the example that I was sharing. There was a viper suddenly showing out of nowhere. And everybody was like, whoa, what is this? And I'm like, it must have been around. But suddenly, since there was water, it had a habitat it could go to. So I think that's a very, very strong indicator that you can easily witness. You could probably do this before or after very well if you have a proper questionnaire of looking, okay, which species do you find before and after? And on water quality, maybe you want to specify what exactly you were thinking about.
I just know
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead, Julian.
No, please,
just
Mary, go for it.
one more addition to that, because in my Mosel glamping, you saw this example of this 200-gallon bathtub, which is super, super, super critical of water quality. I have 5-star resort guests paying $250 per night in this tent to sit in this DIY location. So to say it like this. And now when they first see this and they see this water and I say, yeah, this is natural water, no chemistry, no electricity, no nothing. I have a super simple method how I measure the water quality. It is a special plant that just grows inside a good water quality. So if this plant dies or looks poor, I know my water quality isn't good. But at the moment, it is thriving. So as long as this plant is thriving, I do not need really measurements and everything. And I always say to the guests, please feel comfortable in nature water. It's like water that you can find somewhere out in nature. Yeah, it's not chemically treated. It's not technically treated, which does not mean that it's not healthy. Maybe it's the opposite. If you bath your children too long into chlorined water, look at them after 2 hours. That's for me.
Can you name the plant?
Yeah, in Germany, we call it Tausendblatt, 1,000 leaves. 1,000.
Yeah, I also don't know the English word, but I mean, I'm not an eco-hydrologist or something, but I mean, also scientists in this field do a lot with indicator species, whether it's whether it's plants or also microbes or small water animals that indicate certain water qualities or also in other contexts air quality. You look at certain species. I think if you research a bit on that, I'm sure you can also find a lot online. I mean, I'm not really good at identifying like plants, for example, and especially these indicator species yet. I definitely still want to learn much more about it because I think it can tell you so much also when walking the land. That's also what we learned about in the Water Stories core course. So I think that's from let's say indicator species, you can learn a lot in I guess every context. You just need to be aware of them and be able to recognize them and identify them and know in what context they thrive.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I want to let other people have the chance. Really great answers and great.
Thank you, Mary. Also, real quick, very, very fast. In my community in Santa Teresa, there's an organization called Water Keepers. They basically put a probe that measures bacteria and fecal contaminations in the river. And in other studies where they've put like biochar gabions, they measure the water quality before and after they put that, and they notice, big reductions in nitrogen. Potentially you could do that in any earthwork feature you put in where you measure downstream water quality. But I would say like Gerhard, you probably could get a university involved pretty easily to measure water quality. All right. Well, thanks, Mary. All right. I'm going to let Ethan talk next. Hey there, Ethan.
Howdy, how's it going today?
Doing good.
Wonderful. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate the insight and everyone's time talking about water quality. And as we discuss water quality, what sequestration is being managed and calculated from the plant life surrounding these water-wise retentions? Are we showing the nitrogen and carbon sequestration, and are we calculating that so we can save on taxes, especially after the new carbon tax bill was just introduced this year?
In
Germany, we
You
don't
are getting super specific here, Ethan. So what I can tell you is that in Europe we are still finding our way through carbon taxing and also through carbon emissions trading. So we don't have very much on this yet. I can go back again to the conference yesterday. There is quite some stuff coming up. But yeah, it's not really that we get paid for fixing nitrogen and carbon in our waterworks, not yet. Maybe Leandra, you have something to add?
Yeah, just as you were talking, it came to my mind that indeed wetlands are, known for extremely high carbon sequestration and nutrient removal. But yeah, I don't have any numbers on that. I think if you would look online, you would definitely be able to find some. But I think at least, yeah, in the European context, it would be hard to turn them into tax reduction yet.
God.
We need somebody to work on that.
Do you all have certified calculator sequesters who are going around giving the farm owners or homeowners the numbers on how much sequestration these plants are putting back into the ground, or via the landscape build and seeds, what would be the potential savings?
No, not at all. The conference that I was in, I think it's the first organization in Austria that at all tries to calculate this and then to really prove what is going on in the soil and what is going to be sequestrated in Austria. I had some speakers there from Germany that are really into the field, quite good, also from a university quite close to Hanna. But
Which
no,
one?
there isn't. Greifswald.
No, that's up in the north. That's actually far away.
Okay, so sorry. There's not. It's not yet people running around, but this organization that ran the conference, they are building up exactly this. They try to build up these competences within the people to be able to really do this job.
Yeah, and I think it's also starting to be discussed. I don't know, maybe that's also what you are referring to, Gerhard, but at least in the agricultural field, because yeah, talking about can farmers actually get credits and also be paid for the benefits they provide to all of us as a society by fixing carbon and increasing soil quality and all of these things. But I think it's still, I know that in Germany and also in the European context, there are some organizations that are trying to set up like carbon how do you call this? Carbon credit systems, let's say, for farmers. But I think they're all still, they're still niches, I think. But it's definitely, like, I'm not so much into this topic, but I know they exist, and it's a growing field, I think. But it's not that the usual farmer or the usual homeowner has a transparent view of the potential of carbon fixation or sequestration they could achieve through certain measures taken on their land or in their management practices.
Actually, from this organization, sorry, Hannah.
Sorry.
Actually, from talking to this organization that ran this conference, I also know they have like 400 farmers implementing whatever you can think of to try to fix carbon. And I can tell you, it has so many varieties, what works and how it works, and from how they are doing their agriculture, using compost, biochar. The one thing works there, the other thing works there, depending on so many factors. So the knowledge base, I think, is just developing, that you can really go around and say, in your plot, you can do this, and it will have around this effect. I think we are still a bit far from, and most of the organizations that try to do this and come up with, say, yeah, in your field, you can do this, and then you will store this. I think they are not fully serious yet.
Yeah, and if I can add on there, I think kind of to summarize, this is one of the rare situations where the policy is way in advance of the science. And we don't yet have the science to actually quantify any of this. And in fact, I know there's lots of people working on this, but the people that I know that are involved with these carbon credit schemes, they're basically saying we're 5 years from having the technology to actually be able to measure this in a way that is accurate, but we've already accepted the money that we will be measuring this. So they have to basically falsify stuff to show that they're measuring it and, you know, provide these metrics that they know are inaccurate, but there's something because they can't pay the money back now. They've spent it on their facilities and people. So I think there, and that's not to say that that's every carbon capture scheme by any means, but it's this weird situation where we have these clear policy directives and financial motivation behind it, but no one has a clear way to actually measure it that's not just kind of sticking your thumb in the air and throwing some numbers at a wall.
I
Yeah,
completely agree.
I would love to add one idea that is in the talk in Germany, and it's the idea also to leave out the carbon footprint a bit and to think more about surface temperature of the land, because there is quite some strong connection between having a lot of biomass and carbon stored in the soil, in the ecosystem, and the temperature of the ecosystem. So maybe it's also, I mean, it's important for thinking about the global greenhouse budgets, but it's maybe not so important for how can I measure if there's something that is effective in the right way. So.
And just building on that, because I think that's maybe the next cutting edge here, we can actually monitor and record the amount of photosynthesis happening on a landscape by comparing infrared and red or blue spectrum light. And so if we have the background data, we could say that this water body creates this much more photosynthesis, providing this much cooling. And I think that is maybe one of the more compelling narratives that we can actually show scientifically with some real numbers and metrics.
Cool. Well, thanks for the question, Ethan. All right, everybody, we're getting almost the 2-hour mark. I think we'll do, Zach, what do you think we do? One live question and then close it out?
Yeah, we should wrap up soon. I want to get to one question from a fellow student of the course.
Okay, how about we do that and then one from Denise, and then we can end it all.
Awesome.
Okay.
Just because I know he's in Germany as well and was in a different class from you guys. Are you currently using tools such as GIS or drones for mapping, planning, or documenting your work?
Who wants to talk?
Well, maybe
Anna.
Gerhard? What? Oh no. Like, sorry, can you, like, so it was about documenting and planning our work through using drones and
Yeah,
GIS,
GIS and drones.
GIS. Well, for presenting, I think that's not on the planning side, but on presenting, Gerhard just had actually had prepared a drone video of the cambium, but we threw it out of the presentation last minute because yeah, we had some problems with loading it, I think. So yeah, for presenting, I think Gerhard has some, yeah, starts working on this with using drones, but on the data side for yeah, for planning, at least Leandra and me, we do have some GIS, some small GIS, or I think Leandra even was quite some from our study background, but so far we haven't really used it for in the context of Team Wasserretention. But I see huge potential in there, definitely for understanding how, next to, of course, really being out on the land and walking the land, reading the land, but still to understand how water moves through the landscape. I think for that, yeah, geodata can be super useful, and also for like I started going into or yeah, trying out GIS again after studying where I had to use it or learned my basic skills of using GIS. I started going into it again in the agroforestry context because I'm like all agroforestry planners I know of in the German context are using QGIS basically to plan their agroforestry systems, and also to be then able to have the trees planted on the specific georeferenced spots where they plant them and are supposed to be, which is also really useful if you need to keep certain distances, for example, to the border of the parcel of your land, or the distance you need for farming machines to be able to move still through to rows of trees, for example. For all these kind of aspects, it can be super useful. But I have to admit, like me personally, I'm still really at the beginning of my learning curve there, and maybe the others want to add something.
Yeah, I can add something. I mean, you have to take into account that we are not really living next to each other. So like buying equipment for us as a team is not really the super helpful because we would have to send it around all the time. But what I can tell is in the region I live in, agroforestry is really on the jump to become big. And the people I'm working with at the moment, also from this conference organization, they are really, really keen to do it. And there is the topic, of course, how can we get the right tools to do it properly? I mean, QGIS is something that I'm about to get a deep dive into, and but it's more. You need the GPS data for, as Hannah said, to plant the trees and all these things. So when we really scale it up, we will have more of this. In the example that I showed to you, we just took the measurements by hand, to be honest, because getting all this stuff, you can also bring in some people, and you will also be quite fast in having the things adjusted. So, but yes, I'm really looking forward to have like all this cool machinery and to be able to work better in this software stuff. Although, and this is something that I have to admit, I really love to be out in the field and not to sit so much in front of the computer.
Shall I add a last remark? Also just on GIS and where I see big potential in the German context. I know that all the water service providers, so utilities and so on, and people working at watershed catchment level, and also working on stream restoration, that these people work a lot with GIS to also map out flood risks, especially flood risks at the moment. And I think if we're ever planning to move into that field, which, as you maybe remember from our favorite water topics, is something that I think we're all very interested in, catchment management. And I think GIS will need to become stronger, but I think from a water retention project implementation perspective, we're often still dealing with smaller landscape units where you don't need to do so much big scale calculations in order to still be sure that what you're doing is sufficient for the landscape that you're working with.
Yeah.
Right,
One more thing I want to add to what Leandra just said. When we look at in Germany, for example, almost, I would say, all municipalities already have heavy rain risk maps showing the flow paths of water and the depth in a certain modeled extreme rainfall event. How deep would the waters stand in a certain location in the catchment area of the municipality? So I think most municipalities either already have these maps or are planning to have these maps made or calculated by an engineering company, because we had a major flood in Germany in 2021, and since then, I mean, Also before it was of course an issue, but since then all municipalities, I would say, woke up even more, also the smaller ones that have less capacity. And I think this is also really a chance, because these usually municipalities or other like water boards, for example, have such maps made by engineering companies, as I said, and these give you a lot of information about where water moves in the landscape, and it can give you a very good first impression on where water retention measures would make sense, at least from the, I mean, it doesn't give you an idea about the geology yet, for example, and for this you of course need other layers, other data, but it gives you a first impression where it makes sense, where water actually right now is running away, let's say, and we are losing it during a heavy rainfall event. And for example, for the municipality I work for now, we already have these flood risk maps, basically, or heavy rainfall risk maps. And the engineering company that calculated these also made a measure catalog based on these runoff maps. They are basically runoff maps, but a bit more elaborated. And they already made a measure catalog showing also some really small scale decentral water retention measures that you could do along agricultural roads, for example, where you see that the water runs down the road, and then they just say, okay, the municipality could do like a small a small basin, let's say, next to the road, letting some of the water run from the road into this little basin. And if they do this a lot, it's something a municipality can easily do, because usually the 1 or 2 meters next to the road, to the path, is land owned by the municipality here in Germany. So I think, it's not implemented that much yet, but you see it more and more walking through forests and fields, at least forests here in Germany. And I think these maps that more and more municipalities have, these runoff maps, can really help to get more easy to implement small measures into practice. And I think that's coming more and more, and it's useful as a basis.
Well, everybody, we've gone far over the 2 hours. Our minds have expanded. We've seen amazing projects and amazing ideas from Team Wasserretention. I know I've been really inspired hearing all of their stories. For folks whose question we didn't get to, I'm sorry. We really wanted to get to all of them, but we ran out of time. You could reach out to any of us at Water Stories. You could also reach out to Team Wasserretention. Their link is right in the chat box. So yeah, teamwasserretention.de, and their website is both auf Deutsch and in English, so anybody can access it. And I guess, why don't we wrap it up? We'll let the team end with their closing thoughts, and then we can end this fine day and this fine webinar.
Yeah, maybe while you guys are thinking of each of your closing remarks, we'll let you guys go around, and I'll just give you a moment to think. But just thank you everyone for joining us here today. Thanks for being part of our community, joining Water Stories. If you want to, learn the same kind of skills, check out our Water Stories core course. We have the next one starting this March, at the end of March. And you can meet other amazing people, like the 4 people on this call with us today, and figure out how to work together to how to bring this positive, hopeful future into the world. Do one of you guys want to kick off with just some closing remarks, and then we'll wrap up today?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for having us. It was, so nice talking to you all. And thanks for giving us the opportunity.
I'll continue with a thank you to the community, and with that I mean the people listening, the people on Water Stories, but also very much to my team members. Thanks, guys.
Yes. Thank you too.
Yeah, I don't have so much to say. I'm really happy when you follow us on our social media accounts. We really want to spread the word, and also internationally. So even if you are not close and we will never work together, we love if you have a like for us. And I saw quite some good questions. I tried to answer them like in some small texts. Whenever you have a question, reach out to us. It's not only that we answer it for you, but sometimes if we are not able to answer, we learn from your question. And this is what it is about very much at the moment for us, learning what you need and then going for it. Thank you.
Julian, you're muted.
Now, I also wanted to thank you all, team, from Water Stories, to inspire us and to coach us. It was a brilliant work. Now you can see you are grabbing some fruits maybe. And I want to share a little picture of a meditation picture with all of you at the end of our session here. It's an analogy between a river and a team. In Germany, we have a quote: "A river knows its way." So, and what does it mean? I meditated a lot over this because I sit 20 meters here beside the river. So since a child, I meditate over that. And then someday there came the thought into my mind that a river isn't a river because it is constantly moving. It is fed by the clouds and then the little drops. It is a collection of drops. And these drops, they trust all the other drops around them that they will flow in the direction that is good for them. I do not say right direction. I say the direction of the other drops. They just trust. It's a play of gravity. And what makes this interesting also with this team? If you follow the gravity of the team, you don't have a kind of resistance. So you flow with the flow. And you don't really need energy for that because you just follow the river. It is pretty interesting because mostly I thought swimming against the stream was my way. And I think in this spagat, we say in Germany, in this two poles, it's a kind of suspension between that. I leave all of you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, vielen Dank für Ihre Weisheit. Vielen Dank für Ihre Arbeit. It was very inspirational and very cool. So thank you guys so much for all the planning and effort you put into this. And we can't wait to share it with everybody all around the world. So
And
with that,
recording will be available afterwards.
Yeah, it
And
is.
yeah, thank you all you guys. You make Water Stories proud.
Right.
Thank you,
Ciao,
guys.
guys. Good night and
Have a good day
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
in the US and good night to people in Europe.
Looking forward working with you all.
Oh, it's so fun. All right, see everybody. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.